We're ready, Peter.
Okay, thank you, Andy. So first off, welcome to all of you who just joined this webcast, a day in the life of a modern project manager, or perhaps even any project manager. My name is Peter, and I'm going to sort of guide you for the next 40 minutes, more or less, plus some Q&A in terms of what we can achieve with Microsoft Project for the web and Power Apps combined. And we have a short little introduction to both the company and also myself before we go into the actual technology. Just for the record, most of the time today will be spent live, so me presenting a system that is up and running already. So for that reason also, if you are to ask questions, feel free to do that along the way. I do have a couple of colleagues who will be able to respond through the Teams meeting in real time. And for those questions that I don't see or read throughout the session, we will wrap up on those at the end of the session. So first off, my name is Peter, and I have been working with Microsoft Project and Microsoft since 2004, only focusing on project portfolio management and how that works together with the Microsoft technology. I have been lucky enough to be nominated as a Microsoft MVP in Microsoft Project for the last 10 years. And this year, I'm actually also in the Power Apps or Business Applications track as an MVP as well. So actually two. I am an author for Forbes, where I write on the technical blog about the changes and trends in the market for project portfolio management. And especially the last couple of years have been very exciting, where we've seen this massive trend on making almost everything that we can agile in the terms of having backlogs rather than fixed plans and so forth. So some of those things I'm going to cover as well today in the presentation. So the company in a OnePager has again been around since 2004, so quite a long time, only focusing on project. Today, we are calling ourselves a Microsoft Power Platform partner, because that is the foundation for where project management will take place in the long run, and also where the things have changed from being a SharePoint only based technology to now being something that's a little bit more scalable and modern, as we dare to call it. Our company as such have obviously 48 consultants, so we do consulting, but we also have products, various products for different processes, resource management, financial management, and so forth. Combining consultants with products, we actually have solutions that can be set up and running within weeks or days, where in the past it would take months. And we also support, of course, all our customers. So all in all, we want to be the center of excellence when it comes to Microsoft plus project portfolio and resource management. So the bigger one-pager for how we try to help our customers is to essentially, this is always unique, of course, but to move people from the left side towards the right side on the different levels. One way of explaining this, perhaps a little bit more easy, is that there's a lot of people, especially project managers, which is the focus of this webcast today, who find themselves spending tons of time trying to capture most recent data, making sure that the forecast is up to date, ensuring that the right PowerPoint has been sent to the right steering group member at the right point in time. So lots of time is being spent down here in the data quality auditing level of the pyramid, so to speak, where in fact many project managers would like to get that data automatically so that they can use that to better predict and plan ahead rather than looking back. Same thing goes for the rest of the company, where the more time we spend down here on making sure that we have the right KPIs on time at the end of the month. If that was just working for us, we could spend way more time in the top box here on what to do and how to achieve it. So there's a big shift in considering data as something you type in manually once a month to now harvesting data and using data to drive the new decisions going forward. And also for the agile way of executing work, for sure. So today is about project management. Tomorrow is about the rest. So 2 sessions. So just to be clear on it, I will cover way more in terms of portfolios and programs and other things tomorrow. And this session today is for the project managers to better understand how does the day in the life of that person look like in a project plus Power Apps context. Then on a final note as well, we have a way of describing the way of working in Projectum, which we call a controlled agility framework, that we have a trademark on as well. And the thing is that we break down any organization into these buckets when it comes to a project portfolio management. So first off, we have governance as the thing that sort of connects what upper management needs and what I as a project manager has to do. And we can have many varieties of project models depending on the type of project, whether it's large or small, HR project, IT project, financial project. And for each model, of course, there can be a certain set of project management processes that we have to comply with and understand. Then below that project management space is where the scheduling kicks in. And here we work with what we call change-driven schedules. In many ways, it's a backlog where we then plan through sprints, if it's Scrum or just in general, plan our workload depending on priorities. And then we have the plan on the left side, which is obviously the typical Gantt chart approach to it. And then there are those who have the combination, which we can then call hybrid. End of day, you also have team members down here who need to collaborate with the project manager, regardless of it being agile or traditional. So this is sort of the box again that we're focusing on today. And again, for tomorrow's session, we'll be focusing more on the right and the left flanks, time sheeting, people management, and resource management, and up here as well, top-down planning, funding, and tracking performance. All right, so the final slide before I go live is perhaps a little bit complicated if you see it at first glance, but essentially it's showing you how many options you actually have today as a project manager and as a company to plan a task. So when we say tool of choice, it's obviously that we want to allow people to use the best tool that they can have and use and work with depending on their projects. Some have a preference to use Azure DevOps. Some use as Planner because it's already in Teams and massively used by a lot of also project managers. Some would use Jira. Some use as Tasks, which is a native part of Power Apps. Some would prefer to use the project client. So we connect with that as well, also in the new world of Power Apps. Some prefer to use the new Project for Web that I'm going to show as well today, which in itself is its own way of managing projects. There's an upcoming Dynamics project operations solution, which is mainly for professional services, that also uses the new Project for Web. And then there's Project Online, the SharePoint-based solution with the desktop client connected to it as well. But regardless of sort of what tool for scheduling you want to use, then the system we have on top of it, the control agility solution, we call that Power PPM, connects to all the components and elements. So today we'll see a little bit of everything on how we can plan our schedules, but mainly we need to also ensure that we understand that scheduling is not project management, it's part of project management. It's from one process out of many. So to be a project manager in a technology context, it's much more than just managing the schedule for sure. So moving away from slides and instead navigating back into my, let me see again here, this one. So first off, we are now in on a web browser. We are in a Power App. I'm a project manager. And what I can access here is the application called Power PPM, which could be accessed in several ways. And let me just go out of my full screen. I can see that's sort of blocking the screen to go big here. There we go. So if I click on this one, I can go really big like that. So in this app, there are lots of different things I can do. Some of them are very relevant for me as a project manager. Some of them are not. Typically, depending on who you are, certain roles will have access to certain elements on the left side, unless you want people to have access to seeing everything. And there can be many different elements on the left side menu here, such as reports, where you can quickly top down, get an overview on the portfolio. That's some of the things we'll cover tomorrow, just so you get an idea that everything gets stored into one database, so we can quickly get an overview across all the projects, both as a project manager and as any other stakeholder in the organization. So we also have things like strategic themes, ideas that can become projects, benefit realization plans, projects, deliverables. Essentially, everything you want to track and manage can be added here, all connected to each other. So we can actually, for the first time, I believe, really have that one truth and one database approach to driving decisions. So if we start off by clicking projects, with the very limited time we have today, here are all the projects that I have access to looking at. I can find my own projects based on a security role. So all of these could be filtered based on who I am. So I could only see my projects. For that reason, we have several views. My projects, calendar views, my active projects, it could be closed projects like this one, or anything else in between. And for each view, we can attach a security role, of course. We can also, to find data faster, click on the show chart, which actually brings you something that is not Power BI, but a simple approach to getting real-time. This is really real-time data. So that when we want to find, for instance, the projects that are running Agile, there are 9 of those right now. If I click here, immediately I see which those are. I can also click on hybrid. I can click on traditional. There could be other modes as well. For instance, my top 5 projects by variance, and so on and so forth. Some of these can be very useful for others in the portfolio management office or project office, but some of these could also be quite relevant for me as a project manager if you are the project manager who is managing many projects at the same time. There are typically those who manage large projects where it's one project at a time, but I also have, for instance, project managers in procurement departments who sometimes run up to 30 projects at the same time. So in that context, charting and real-time reporting on your projects is valuable as well. So removing that one, then creating new projects is as easy as clicking here. But again, today we're going to pick up one that's been done already. My project number 1. I can see that it has a priority, the current KPIs, % complete. I can see it's being driven mainly in Microsoft Project when it comes to the tooling for schedule. For the schedule, it belongs to a portfolio. It's in the business case stage right now. I can even find you can't see that really, but there is a direct link to the latest status report as well. So if others want to pull the most recent status report for this project, in this case in PowerPoint, they can click there, pick up the PowerPoint, which is auto-generated, and in that way, not disturb me as a project manager, but just pull it. So those are some of the really cool capabilities we have. Everything can be exported from here to Excel and imported back in again. So the whole way of doing bulk updates, if you have many projects, can also be done on the view or through Excel. Now let's open up this project and go maybe with the first tab. I'm just going to go full screen and remove this little box here. So what you see right now is what we call the project form. Again, this can be tailored to various purposes. Right now it's showing a lot. We can also adjust what it shows depending on where you are in the life cycle of the project. Also depending on the type of project you are running. So this is a large project, so you sort of have everything enabled up here. So what we can see here is, for instance, the description of the project. And one thing that is really great about this as a project manager is that we can get support built into the screen right here without having to read a document or call up the PMO to get some input. As an example, if we don't know what to write in the description field when we create a project, we can click on this little lamp that shows up or bulb and always get some recommendations and even apply certain text if you want it to happen like this. So we can do that for all the fields so people are guided. The other part is that no matter where I am in the system, I can always click this question mark up here and be told what to do throughout the system. So I can click here and say, what should I do with the project stage? And I can click there and it will show me if you want it to happen, certain areas of the screen that will be highlighted. I can see right now that's sort of disabled, but let's see if I can click just one of them. There we go. So here's the project name. Here you click save down here. Financial summary, you have to go there, etc. It could even be a video that you want to embed or a document and similar. This is not coded, so everything today that I'm sort of showing is something you can manage without code. So I think the help pane is pretty useful for project managers, especially if they're new to the system. Now, besides that, when I launch a project, we also do other things. As an example, we create a Teams group or a Teams channel. So there will be a direct link to managing this particular project inside Teams. We'll get back to that. We'll also automatically create a planner board. Planner board is again, a task board. It's good for the Agile way of working. It's also good for sort of the things that perhaps are not key tasks, but that's mainly checklist of some sort. So that in combination with a Gantt chart can be pretty useful. We have documents. So if you're perhaps not relying on Teams, you could have your documents stored in SharePoint somewhere, and there will be a link to that. We can even connect to Project Online. Some might ask why, but in this case, that will be to ensure that we can use the more advanced way of doing scheduling in Project Online still, but rolling it up into the system. So as a project manager, besides managing what I call the metadata, which is just linking to portfolios, programs, making sure it's the right project type, the right sponsor, those sorts of things. What I can also do is that I can actually, of course, manage the schedule from here. So let's try and just do some updates in the system to better reflect what a project manager has to do on a daily basis, perhaps. So clicking on Project for Web brings you this view, which is the new project for the web embedded inside the system. You can work from it from here. You can also go full screen by clicking there. Just do that. Have a bigger view on it. You can also access it from Microsoft Teams using an add-in. So there are actually several locations from where you can manage your schedule. So with Project for Web, again, here I have my phase 1, my phase 2, and my phase 3. So a simple example could be that now I want to showcase that I've done with the gate 1 review, if we have completed that. So the simplest way of doing that is to write maybe 100% complete here, or maybe even go to the board view like this, where I can see all my tasks in the backlog or tag by whatever I want to tag them by. I can change that, drag it around like this, maybe put gate 1 right here. And this text that I just added will obviously be visible right here as well. So I can quickly see that everything that belongs to a certain bucket, like this one, is shown immediately, and I can change it from here as well if I wanted to. Now, on the board view, as a person doing updates, I can also group by progress like this, which means, and then these are fixed. So you have not started, in progress, completed. But here you can quickly take gate 1 and say, now it's done. You can also click on it and get access to percent complete, duration, completed, remaining hours, even the dependencies, or add a note like this. And if I go back to the grid now, you will see that gate 1 has been completed. So whether or not I do it from here or there, or if someone else does it, it can all be done through this experience. Besides that, we can, of course, create new tasks, maybe a new phase 4. So happens now and then. And for phase 4, I'm going to do a special task. We're going to use that later on to drive something called a deliverable. Assign that to myself and perhaps give it 5 days of duration. This, start and finish, and that's all we need to do right now. So this one can be placed right here underneath phase 4. If you were to sort of see this in the traditional Gantt style, you could click on this one, and you would see the Gantt chart. Let's just zoom out a little bit. So here's the Gantt chart, which is changed a lot for those who haven't seen it compared to Project in the previous days. What I can do here, of course, is connect again like this, or move it automatically so things move in time as they should. I can also extend, shorten them. As you can see at the very top, you'll see immediately which states we're talking about right now. And we'll get back to what this means later on in the demo. So this tool does not connect to the project client. If you are in need of that, we have another solution for you to achieve that. And I'm going to show you that as well. You should also know that this tool, when you work together with your team as a project manager, what is really cool is that your project team members can go into this plan and do their updates themselves. But it also means that they can sort of update everything in the schedule. So of course, it sort of requires some degree of trust, which I think is normal under these times where people are working in Azure DevOps or other Agile tools. They're used to sharing the update burden. But if you are the project manager who wants to control all the updates on your own, then you should probably rethink using this tool versus perhaps Project the Desktop and other tools. So it's all about, you could say, how sensitive you are in terms of security and sharing. But more on that tomorrow actually as well. So I'm just going to go back again from this view. Just go back from full screen and into this one. So of course, the updates I just did full screen are immediately shown right here. There's no delay, there's no need for refresh. So if you move ahead again, if you were to do the scheduling and connect it to the client, then we have made this view, which we call Power Gantt. So this is another Gantt chart, but this is not where people can go into this and do changes as they would like to. If they are to do that, they would have to go through a My Tasks experience, sort of what we had in Project Online, or connect this to the project client to do updates from there. We can do both. So if you want to use the project desktop, we got you covered. Then once you've done that, your data will be stored and visible like this for the rest of the organization. If you prefer to not use the project client, you can of course use this one. But of course, the schedule is not the only thing we have to do. So if we move ahead, we also have something called financials. And here again, we have a simple add-in, which can be made much more advanced. It's pretty basic for this demo today. On the right side, I can see the current status on my budget, actuals, and forecast. I could also split it into CapEx, OpEx, or other categories. What is great here is that if we just collapse this, that I can quickly get an overview on budget, benefits, cost, forecast by the years, or expand it and find out what happens in June when it comes to CapEx and how much have we spent. So the actual cost can either be written in manually. We are in September right now. So what I could do is go in and say, we already spent this amount of money like this. It brings us up to 200,000. If I do a simple refresh here, you'll see in real time in 2020 that things will change. There is no delay at all, which is pretty useful. The other part is that the actual cost could come in from any system that you have. The SAP, Dynamics, whatever system or ERP system you use, Oracle for that matter, either direct or through a flat file integration and without the use of developers. So we actually can finally, I would say yes to a simple way of bringing in your actual costs so that project managers like myself can just get the data and read only and not having to worry about where to find the data. That's a really good example, I think, on where we can save a lot of time, especially at a monthly review meeting. Then we have the forecast. Essentially, I think that's the same process. We can type in or we can have numbers being calculated for us. So this view is a whole lot about how people prefer to plan. I always say less is more, but I know that there are also controllers out there who probably say that more is important. So let's not try and make this into a spreadsheet, but it can actually behave and look like a larger spreadsheet if you wanted it to. So this was one example on managing financials, very, very simplistic. Now, for the KPIs, that's also something we always have to do. So here we also have a special component that allows us to, as project managers, quickly understand in text what it means to be red, green, or yellow on scope, for instance. So rather than always saying, are you in red, green, or yellow, we have to know what yellow means or red means. We also have to snapshot the data, I think, so that we actually consider putting something in red as a request for help rather than us failing as a project manager. So what I can do here is quickly looking at scope. Well, scope hasn't changed. So if I want to click on the same scope, it's green. And I can say things are all right. Same thing for cost. We might have an overspend of 10%. So if I click on that one, and before I do that, notice what happens on the left side in real time. Let me just remove this text as another example. I will just click on this. This goes red, but automatically this goes red. Because if something is red, the overall status automatically goes to red. This we call a business rule. And as a project manager, it's great that no matter where I am in the system, these rules just kick in. Before I hit save, before I do a page refresh, while I'm doing stuff, I get my guidance. And if I ignore that I need help and I don't want to write anything here and just hit save, text will pop up, which means that in my reports, even if the PMOs are pulling data, they will see that I have not done anything. This text could have said, you forgot to insert data or whatever it could be. Right now, it's trying to help me by saying your project is in red. You need some details for the steering group to help you unblock the issue. Then I can, of course, say, I really need to something and whatever it is. So these rules are really important, especially because they're real time. Again, the quick test, everything is green, suddenly something is red. Now it's red up here as well, and so forth. So this is KPI management. We'll get back to how we can snapshot these and how often. Now, we'll get back to the resource requesting as well later on. Risks is also something we need to track and manage as something on its own. Of course, there is a complete library of all risks over on the left side here, but as a project manager, we want to see the risks in the context of our project. So here I can quickly go in below here and create a new risk like this. And perhaps say my webcast risk. a description of some sort. This is about, this could be anything. We could upload documents, take pictures. We can attach so much in this system. Probability could be 60%. Impact could be very extreme. Perhaps there's an expected due date somewhere around October. Do we know how to mitigate it? Maybe. Let's just get back to that later. There could be cost of mitigating it, maybe even a contingency plan. This can be, of course, configured to whatever you need, but as a project manager, I would say this is the minimum we probably have to manage. Hitting save immediately adds another one down in the view down here. Now, I think I probably have to do a quick refresh on this screen, but what I want to show you is that when I go back to my risk grid here, that the risk we created has the ID 110, 110, and it's placed right here. And if I had many in the other cell, I could click around, as you can see here, and quickly find out which risks are happening where. And this risk box is available as a pull information to all the other people in the company, teams, the portfolio managers, the program managers, so they would see the sum of all risks from all the sub-projects in one big matrix. This one we can even populate and export real-time to PowerPoint. So that's one example on how to manage risks. As another example of what we typically have to do is to take care of risks that are active. That is what many would tend to call an issue. So here we have issues, we have change requests, two different things, sometimes connected. If we go to the issues part, again, we can see issues that are here already, whether or not they are resolved or active. We can have various views up here. I only have one right now that shows you data from the risks, the issues in real time. I can click new issue and quickly set up my webcast issue. Same thing applies like the risks. There will be a form you have to fill in. Category could be the category of budget. Priority would be high. State would be active. Perhaps a due date for some sort of a decision. The project is already linked as it should be, maybe a comment as well, and hit save. So now there's an issue down here. And again, if you don't want to refresh the screen, by clicking here, you could also just click on this one and do this and see there's now two that are high. At some point in time, you might find that you have several issues. I'm going to get back to what that means, but as a project manager, you can even find that you have maybe 20 or 30 or change requests over time, especially if it's a long project. So for that reason, maybe you want to use this to sort of get some more details on what's going on. So these charts can actually be expanded like this, no matter where you are. So you get the full overview of what you just looked at. I can then click on any component here and do a drill down, for instance, to the issues we have that are high, based on perhaps the, let's say what we have up here. I see I would want to find something interesting. Maybe that's not so, yeah, well, the category might be interesting in some sort of a chart. So right now I have one issue that is in the category of budget and one that is in the category of resources. So of course, the more data you have, the more this will make sense. But this is not Power BI. This does not require a refresh with some data source somewhere. This is something that any project manager can use for their projects and always in real time. So left side would be change requests. Now, if we create a new change request, again, of course, you can almost guess it now. There's a form popping up. I want to do a webcast change request like this. Category again would be budget. Priority would be high. The sponsor or the approver, I cannot add, because that's pulling from who is sponsoring or who's the chairman for this project, which is great for me as well, because then I know that any change will always automatically be routed to the right person in the steering group. So let's just write 45,000, sorry, and hit save. So automatically this change request is now created. So that's why it's up here in a created shape. We have 3 now. These views can also be allowed to be a bulk edit view. So if you have many change requests and you need to update them as a project manager every end of the month, quickly you could go in here, perhaps change this one from priority high to medium. I don't have to leave the page or open it up. I can say the status is not created anymore. We are awaiting somebody's decision. And as you can see also, the approver has changed to Alan because Alan is the overall sponsor of this project down here. So that's why he automatically gets notified. And when we add Alan, it's not just a lookup with a flat name. It's actually the whole Office 365 information about Alan. I can see who Alan reports to. I can send him an email, do chatting, call him up, and even check up on files we've shared recently. So adding Alan is a lot of things besides just the name. So we can really inform him automatically with the stuff he needs to worry about. So I don't have to think about writing emails to him. So going back here again, we now have this one, and it's created. So if I hit save now here on this view and refresh this one, we now have 2 that are created and 1 that's in the awaiting decision. I could also show this based on date. So over time, I could see how many different change requests we have had and whether or not they are awaiting decision or just created and time phased. So if we go to the weekly status or monthly status, what we also always almost have to do is create that OnePager or maybe even PowerPoint report to some other persons than ourselves. It could be the customer, it could be either, well, an external maybe, or of course, management, portfolio groups and steering groups. So when we need to do a snapshot, not only on the project plan, but maybe also on the rest of the data, finance, the risks and so forth, I can just quickly click here. Now, for the demo purpose, I have to write my own period here, but you could have automatically generated the week we are in or the date. I could write webcast snapshot like this, hit save, and in no time, it automatically dumps a full copy of the current values into the system. And what you can see also is that what has changed since this morning where I did it before this meeting is that our actual cost went up from 1150 to 1175. So of course we can then over time, and the budget changed as well, so we can over time track changes in some great Power BI report or similar if you need the portfolio aspects to it. This is the stuff we'll look into, of course, tomorrow. But what we can also do is that this report up here, when we start creating a snapshot, what also kicks in, let me just refresh this one, is that there's a report status saying report generated. So if I click on the weekly status, this one, and open it up, I can quickly get a glance at the high level information from that point in time where I took a snapshot. So the score, the hours in the project plan, the remaining hours, the benefits, the total budget, all of that. But also notice that we automatically generated a PowerPoint report available for anyone in the organization. So if I click on that one, it opens up PowerPoint, and then it has merged in real time all the data I typed in to this system. So the project plan, probably that should be configured and with different visuals. This is a simple example for today. The actuals from CapEx, OpEx, time phase perhaps, KPIs, and so forth. Any sort of chart you have available inside PowerPoint, we can write data to in real time. And the only thing I, as a project manager, have to do is click the button called monthly status or weekly status, which takes a snapshot of all my data plus generates a report, which I really find valuable. And if the PMO officer needs to at some point perhaps change the template for my reports, they can do that themselves, and automatically I would just use that next time I have to do an export. For those who are perhaps not fully into the world of, let's call it PowerPoint, then you can also export to, let me just go back to where we came from here. We can also export all our data, just a second here, to Word. Just to mention that as well. I'm not saying that a lot of people do that, but you can. So we can have Word templates as well, where you can quickly export what you're looking at down here in real time and open up a Word document, and then you will see the same data immediately shown in here. So of course, in this case, we can't write to the charts of Word. Then you would need a solution we have as well called Presented. But essentially, we can do both. That's the whole case. So one of the things I still haven't shown is something we calling deliverables and dependencies. And essentially, now that we have a project plan, it might be that others are depending on certain tasks in this project plan. So on the left side here, I have a full overview of all deliverables. But what I could do is go into the dependencies or deliverables, whatever label you give it, and create a new deliverable for my project. So when I do that, I create the webcast deliverable. Sorry. I have a target date, perhaps saying I want to deliver this deliverable, or that's what I promised to the business, somewhere around the 24th of September. And the task I'm going to connect, if I want to, I don't have to, but if I want to connect this to a task in my project plan, I can click here and see only the tasks that are in my project plan. And what you will find is that the task called special task up here, the one I just did in the beginning of this webcast, is already here as well. So I can connect those two and then hit save. And as you can see in real time, the target date is the 24th of September. But the finish date for the task that we just did down here is all the way through to December. So the point is that when I look at this, I am delayed. For us, that's a big difference between current finish date and target date. So how can that help other people who are project managers? Well, they could go in another project and create a dependency to this one. They can create a dependency like this, the webcast dependency. Probably you would never do that within the same project, obviously, but let's do it anyways here. And pick up the deliverable, the webcast deliverable, write a comment perhaps, hit save, and I will also get the status that this one that you're relying on has been delayed. So the full overview of deliverables can then be accessed in this view, where you see all the deliverables down here. Again, we could have charting showing, are we delayed? Are we on time? Which are delayed? Those would be the ones. And here we will find that the webcast deliverable is delayed as well. So the rest of our business can also follow up on key deliverables across everything that sort of goes on inside the system. And now we are almost about to sort of open up for Q&A, but before we do that, two things. One, benefit plans I'm always asked about, and that's something that I really want to also just emphasize, that we can do quite simple as well. We can do complex stuff as well, but quite often it's something where we shouldn't ask the project manager to do it, in my opinion. It should be a benefit plan owner that does it. But it's still perhaps the project manager's somewhat part of the responsibility to explain when others can start to track the benefits. So when we say launch a benefit plan and hit yes to that, then automatically it creates a benefit plan, which means that down here, something will go on. So if I click on that as an example, you will notice that there's planned benefits in the My Project worth 2.4 million euros. Now, actual benefits right now is 750,000 euros. And down here, we could then have a simple grid where we can have the ability to create benefit lines, my webcast benefits. Maybe it's tangible, maybe it's not. But anyway, some of it needs tracking. But let's say it's tangible. And the source could perhaps be that our ERP system or customer system will once a week dump current data into the system. Of course, that needs some refinements in terms of how to connect the dots. But bringing in data is not our problem anymore. And now we can say we want to track these benefits. So what the benefit owner should do is make sure that these data are updated, perhaps by once a month writing what just has been sold. Let's just go in and do an example, 150,000. And maybe nothing here, just to be clear on that one. We cannot have benefits in the future as such. And hit save. The point is that once an hour, data will be rolled up to this level. I'm just going to force it to happen now. So now we can see that we had 2.4 million planned, 900,000 have been harvested so far. So again, we have the ability to get a quick overview on all benefit plans that are being realized, show it in the chart as well, or using portfolios, programs, and projects to check up on where are we actually doing what we should be doing. Now, tomorrow I will also explain a whole lot about resource management, but from also a resource manager's perspective. So just as a little teaser, as a person, as project manager, I would probably be in the need of requesting resources in a typical organization. To do that, I have Team Planner up here. This is a tool we've created as well, from where I can quickly set up my resource plan. What it means is that I can go in on the right side, and right now I can see I'm logged on as a resource manager. I'm just going to change the view like this. So I can see what has been requested or what has been given in terms of allocations per week or per month. I can see all the different people I have in the system by role. Perhaps say I'm going to need a project engineer, drag in the person to a phase or maybe at the highest level. And afterwards say I would like to spend or get 40 hours of attention from this certain role, then 80 hours, then 60 hours, then 40 hours. Perhaps even adding a little comment to it so that the line manager will see what I'm in need of. So this is sort of how we can do the request. Now, of course, the most interesting part perhaps is which resources are we getting by name and how can we work with that data elsewhere in the system. But that's for tomorrow, because that's a different role that have to take care of just that. So finally, by clicking out of this one, of course, what I've shown you works inside Teams as well. One thing is that we have the schedule available in the team, like this with the views and so forth, but also that we have other things like files and else, different information and communication that we need to do with our team. I would say anything, this sounds awful, but below the project manager, so the entire team, they should probably access everything through Microsoft Teams, where I, as a project manager, will work inside an application made for that purpose. But if you want to collaborate with team members, for instance, on risks or deliverables or tasks, they can also do that through Teams. I showed you the scheduling example, but it could also be that you want to access risks, for instance, so that the team members can open up, you see, it's created, it should be set up. There we go. You can then, of course, select what they should be able to see down here. But as an example, they could then see the risks. They could go full screen. They could create risks and update them and so on, without having to leave Teams. So team members work in Teams. Project managers could also work in Teams, but end of the day, they need an application where they can do lots of updates. So we are 40 minutes into the presentation, and that's what I was told I should spend on the project manager's role. So I think we're going to open up for questions now. I'm just gonna move away from this one. Let me just see. Feel free to Jens, who's monitoring the Q&A thread as well, to speak up if you have something that you're going to.
Andy and I are monitoring. I think you've been wowing the audience with all the detail that you're giving them at the moment, which I think they're very focused on what you've been showing. I wonder if you could show in an organization that's working hybrid how they might use other tools such as Azure DevOps to deal with things.
Yes. Well, there are two aspects to it. There are some who treat the project management part equally, regardless of you being under an agile way of executing or traditional. And then there are those where the business case is different. So this example I'm showing you right now, because I can show both, only talks about methodology from a scheduling perspective. So in the world of, let's say we connect to Azure DevOps as one example, when you have the project created, you will have to decide on at some point the method you're going to use for doing the schedule. If I change to hybrid or agile, you will see over on the scheduling part that things will change immediately. So right now it automatically changed and said we are working with this as what is called an epic in DevOps. So there's direct link automatically generated to DevOps or Jira, and we can then pull features planned or features done on a fixed frequency. Opening up this one will then bring you automatically to DevOps, where things will be broken down into tasks and bugs and features, KPIs and user stories, whatever we call it. So that's definitely one way of doing it. And the other one is where we are perhaps a little bit more into what some would understand as being scaled agile, where we treat the business case of an agile project differently. One example of that, I just quickly have to change this one, but I think it's a good question. So let me just go to the app, open up. I have two versions of my system. This one is the right one. So here you will find that we have also projects, of course, as you saw it before, but also epics. And epics is something else. So when you create a new epic, it's in this case about epic type, business enabler epic. What you're looking at right now is the default requirements for creating a portfolio epic according to the Scaled Agile Institute. So if that's the preference, then you still have a stage gate, but it's actually a portfolio backlog or portfolio funnel. Let me just do a webcast 1, 2, 3 and hit save. Automatically, we inject all the requirements, which are mainly text-driven in Scaled Agile, so that people know what to do and how to do it. Same thing for the lean business case. And then, of course, you have to type in data as always. And then what we always do is we guide customers in terms of, do you need to track money the same way as we're tracking money into projects? Do you need to request your agile team the same way a project manager would request it? And so forth. There are always these ways where we can combine, hopefully, as much as possible, so we can roll up data to a higher level by combining both agile and non-agile work that takes place. So definitely something we can support.
Yeah, so there's a good long question here, which I'm going to read out slowly from Carl Magnus, which is regarding what you're talking about at the moment. I'm not sure if you've shown all of it. Excellent presentation and demo. Of course, we do that. Appreciate to have the first opportunity to follow this. First question, having connections to Azure or Jira, is it then possible to dynamically get status or info that can update my overall project plan? I think you've shown that. That depends on both business and IT activities. I'll finish off the question.
Yeah.
Would then potentially the risk dashboard be updated likewise? Secondly, can I easily be warned or notified by the system itself, perhaps through AI, if there is a potential risk evolving and growing under the radar, which I don't see, sort of? Of course, given certain rules which generally should have been set beforehand. It's quite a complicated question and not a simple answer, Carl Magnus, but a good question nevertheless.
Yes, and definitely you're onto something there. Anything that happens below an epic is obviously still interesting. We cannot measure progress the traditional way, and I think the real key here is that we need to understand that when we right now have an epic, and what I'm essentially requesting is a fixed team or a team of some sort. So what it also means is that the business is funding or investing in a team, whereas they are probably used to in the past to invest in a project. But regardless of you investing in a team or project, we still have to understand the value that's being generated from that investment. We need the return on the investment. But that's one thing. So one thing is setting up the business case as I'm showing here. The point is pretty accurate from Carl Magnus here that you need to then connect and also be able to pull some success criteria. How many features did we deliver in the last sprint as we promised the business? Or are we on track with our test plans? Or are we always finding problems in our tests, which means that the developers are perhaps not doing the best they could? How can we compare team A to team B? So it's fairly simple for us to, this depends on the customer, to pull for perhaps all the features related to a project right back into this view that you are right here. You'll just find that we'll add a tab called features, and features will be pulled in because we have the connection already. Alternatively, we let everything stay in a report in Power BI, so we just merge two systems. But if you enter onto the AI track, which I think is extremely relevant, then we should embrace that Power Apps out of the box does have an AI experience as a native part of the system, where we are actually able to predict things based on an algorithm and data that we provide to the system. You don't have to be a developer to set this up, but you need the right data, of course, to have the system automatically suggest if things are going to be delayed, expected cost overruns, etc. But natively inside Power Apps, you have the ability to create predictions and having them surface to the project manager in real time while you are planning things or doing a report. So I know it's a really simplistic answer to a rather long question. I would love to go deeper on it, perhaps in another session, or if you want to reach out. But check to machine learning and AI. Check to the ability to pull data without doing a custom development exercise for doing it. We have data flows. Just to on a final note, we can pull in data here. Right now I'm working on a trial environment, but if I wasn't here, you could set up an integration without code. So pulling data easy, using it to do a machine learning algorithm, probably a little bit less easy, but we can.
Another great question here from Anonymous, who regularly comes on these sessions. Has Projectum developed the application itself, or is it part of an Office 365 package? Can the tool be downside if the organization is not very mature, brackets, yet, brackets?
Absolutely, it can. It's a solution we have done. Yes, it's when Microsoft also says that Power Apps is a low-code/no-code solution or experience. Then if you look at what we've been showing today, it was a lot of code for us and still is. So definitely, it's a solution we have. It's a one-off subscription model. So if people want to use and do what I showed today for as many users as they want. The cost is $1,500 USD a month. So just we can be pretty open and honest about that, because it's a very simple model pricing wise. And of course, if you wanted to use Teams, Planner, whatever else, you obviously rely on the rest of Microsoft licensing, and the same thing for Project. But yes, it's a solution we have and we have done code with. But the other question that is asked here is, can we simplify it? And I think if we go back to where I came from just briefly, let me just change the environment again. I have so many. This one to a second here. All of these can be removed, hidden, or even redone from the ground up by just doing configuration, because it's small components we have done, like a financial grid, stakeholder management grid we have as well that I haven't shown today. But I could also go into the project and based on just the project type, let's just call it simplified. If I click on this one, small project, give it a few seconds, notice what happened. The stage gate is in 3 stages now, and I only have 3 things I can do: project info, the schedule, and weekly status. So we can simplify it in many, many ways. But definitely we can remove stuff that shouldn't be there. We have the same pricing model regardless of how simplistic you want to start off with. Yeah, maybe that's a motivator to then mature faster. I don't know.
Okay, if there are any more, there aren't any more questions in the backlog at the moment, to be very agile. Oh no, there's another one come up. It might be a question for tomorrow, but what about connectors? Is this solution supporting interaction with other task management tools like Jira in some way?
Well, of course, I think I mentioned that a few times today. Let me just give you another example on just how much we can do with this. If we just start off perhaps here and open up the other system I have different environments. So in this view, if you click on projects, and now my screen froze for you, I think. Just a second, it should probably maybe reload it again. There you go. There we go. Yeah. So you can see I have primary task tool, DevOps, Power PPM, desktop, Jira. If I open it up, I could have way more than just these. I could have, let me just find it here. This is a list of many things that, and essentially it's up to our customers to define what we should connect to. Then the one thing is connecting to it, that's easy. The other part is what should we pull back up information? Because for some, the ability to just pull in, for instance, from DevOps or Jira and show it in a timeline like this is more than enough, which means that from Jira, we will perhaps go in and tag all the things we're pulling with the right category. Now, this is very traditional, but this could, of course, be features, epics, test plans, and similar activities where it has a start and finish date. So we could pull that information with start and finish and automatically generate the overview of what goes on in the Agile world in somewhat of a timeline. Because even in the most Agile systems, there is a start and finish date for almost everything. And if not, there's at least sprints and iterations where we can also count how many features and other things that should be driven or executed. So then we would use this as the way to pull information in, like we do with Project Client, and then just make sure that this view represents what you want to look at. And that's all depending on how Jira has been set up. There are so many varieties of setting up and configuring an Agile system. So it's not as easy as just 1, 2, 3. We need to understand how it's done, and then we can pull in the data and place it right here in a timeline.
Okay, that's. I just want to acknowledge Per Norman for that question, which I didn't do when I read it out to you. We had Anonymous has been very busy. Had another question, which I've answered online, but you might want to go into it in a bit more detail. The $1,500 per license, is that per license? I assume is the question. I've responded to that saying it's per CDS environment / business unit for unlimited users. But maybe you want just to explain what a CDS environment is, because I think that's sort of useful for people to understand in terms of how Power Apps works that this is built on.
Yeah, so I actually, to be honest, I heard half of it, what you just said, because the first half was scrambling sound-wise. So you're asking how does CDS work in terms of the environments, security,
Well,
I guess?
the question was, is the $1,500 per license, I assume? And I said it is per CDS environment stroke business unit
Oh yeah.
for unlimited users.
Yes.
But of course, that assumes you understand what a CDS environment is.
Yes, right. So when you want to deploy the system inside Power Apps, you can create what is called an environment. And for one environment, it runs on its own database as a service, which means that if you really want to make sure that, as an example, R&D departments, the R&D department cannot be accessed by any ways from any other employee in the company, then maybe if it's an IT solution you need and something for R&D, you would set up two environments, one for IT and one for R&D. So they wouldn't share database essentially. Of course, you can add and apply security models as well, so that you can have everything in one database. And then based on your permissions, you can only see certain things, but that's a little bit more sometimes complex to manage and configure these securities. So an environment is per se a secure place where an entire application can be created, developed, added, imported. Like in our case, we just quickly import it, configure it, and then isolate it from the rest of the business. So price-wise, also at Power PPM, when we charge $1,500 USD a month as a subscription, it's per environment. And for many companies, they only use one. So, but there are those where they say we are publicly traded, so it's sensitive information if people can in any ways access our investment pipeline, for instance, or research results and so forth. So yeah, an environment is a secure place to create an application. That's probably the easiest way to explain it.
That's great. So we're coming into the last couple of minutes of our allotted time. For everybody, as Andy just posted up on the chat window, this has been recorded and will be shared with everybody who's attended or who is registered and cannot actually make this time slot. For those of you who are seeing this later, please feel free to ask us questions via our website or via direct emails to us. We're more than happy to deal with any questions that you might wish to have. I'll make a pitch again for tomorrow's session, which is the day in the life of the PMO. Please go onto the projectum.com events page, and there you can register if you haven't already registered. And as we have done today, we'll be focusing on different areas of our solution, but the two combined really gives you the complete picture of what we can do. And then I'll leave Peter to wrap up any last words that you want to make.
Well, on a final note, I hope that most who attended today will attend tomorrow. And then I would also like to just explain that we can also ship and provide you with access to a trial environment. So if you are interested in trying out what I've shown today, maybe even more after tomorrow, then we can definitely set you up with a trial environment where you can go in and try out some of the many things we've shown today.
Okay, thank you everybody. Andy, you're in control of the session.